are back. Last week we had a little bit of a break, but thank you for being with us. And thank you for Michael Drabkin to be here, our guest this evening. Thank you for coming, Michael.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm
No, no,
flattered.
great pleasure, really great pleasure. Just one thing about housekeeping, I always remind everybody. First and foremost, as we are also on YouTube, to please subscribe, please subscribe. I know that it's painful to go to the process. It's just 2 seconds more, but we need to have you as subscribers. This is the way we give you better content. This is the way we can build a good list of subscribers. So please do it. This is what I'm asking you. Also, we are recording also this program. So after we're done with the live one, you can always find it on LinkedIn and other different other channels, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and LinkedIn for now. Okay, now I'm done with the housekeeping. Let's get to Michael. Michael is a great man. I am so honored that he accepted this invitation. So this is called you change the world, right? And if I am only thinking of people who do that all the time, even they don't know it. So this is why I thought of you, Michael. If you could introduce yourself, I think it's better. I'm sorry to give you that exercise to do, but it's better than you do it than me. Please take a few minutes.
It's fine. So I was born in Hollywood, California. I grew up in Los Angeles, Cedar Sinai Hospital to the stars. I grew up in LA. It was my dream at the time to get a job playing with a major symphony orchestra. I was a clarinetist. I ended up going to the Eastman School of Music, moved to New York City after that, and did freelance playing. Then also, towards the end of high school, I got interested in technology and started doing programming. It was a passion. It wasn't just something to do, but something that I really enjoyed. I enjoyed technology. And then I did some various programming courses while I was attending the Eastman School of Music in Rochester, New York. And when I moved to New York City, it was easier to do programming than to wait tables, like most of my colleagues.
Really?
And it paid for all my orchestra auditions. And I ended up doing a lot of different things. And in the spring of '82, I had a big breakthrough. Well, actually, I broke through right away. When I moved to New York City, I had friends getting me playing in various orchestras. And then
playing which instrument? Which instrument?
I play the clarinet.
Right.
So on the clarinet. And that first year, I won an audition to play with Virginia Opera. I used to go down to Norfolk to play with Virginia Opera. My second year, I did an audition for the New York City Opera Touring Company, and I won the job playing principal clarinet and toured all through the South playing La Traviata with them. And then the third year was absolutely crazy. I did 6 auditions for major orchestras. I made finals in 5. And this was for both principal clarinet and bass clarinet, which is one of my other interests. And I ended up winning a job playing with the Honolulu Symphony.
Right.
Wow. And I went out to play in Honolulu. And at that point, I was very experienced in playing in orchestras. In New York, when you freelance, they give you maybe 2 rehearsals and then a performance. And then I was playing in Honolulu, where our orchestra had like 4 rehearsals. So it felt like luxury. It felt like I didn't have to practice the music. And one of the big results of playing there is I decided I did not like playing in orchestras for a living. I love the music, I love to play, I love to perform, but doing it as a job was very unpleasant.
Why?
Half the orchestra was on antidepressants or depressed because you were stuck. You were stuck in Hawaii in this orchestra. It's the only job.
Right.
And if you want to audition, you've got to pay the equivalent of a Hawaiian vacation to come back to the mainland to audition. So I said, this is nuts. Yeah. And I came back to New York City. Fortunately, I still had my apartment there. And I started doing more technology and less music. And then the technology stuff kind of went crazy, where I started out doing programming. And then I went to the dark side into management. And I became a project manager, and then a director of technology, and then a CIO and a CTO. Excuse me. I was CTO of a $250 million company with a B. And we had this young guy, well, he wasn't that young. There was a guy from San Francisco who really liked what we were doing. And he used our dispatch model to figure out how to create Twitter. That was Jack Dorsey.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Jack Dorsey was working for us, but he won't talk to any of us now because he breathes rarefied air, as they say.
Yeah, go ahead.
So if I summarize it, I've always worn two hats. I have a hat that I've done in business and technology, and a hat that I wear in music, and I do both of them very actively. Although for the last technology engagement that I did was in 2019, because then COVID hit. But through a variety of circumstance, I found myself as a PhD candidate with Leiden University in the Netherlands.
Right.
And I've been working on a dissertation for the last several years. So I've written 90,000 words, 1,000 pages of music and scores. And my thesis is called Extreme Scoring. And I'm calling for there to be more chamber orchestras because big full symphony orchestras are expensive, and to preserve the canon of the classical music that we love, we should rescore it for chamber orchestra, which I did.
Right.
So I did 3 of the major pieces. I rescored them for a chamber orchestra, and that became part of my dissertation is all the techniques I had to develop for that. And then last December, I had my pieces recorded in the Czech Republic by the Janeček Philharmonic Ostrava with a friend of mine, Mark Laycock, who used to conduct the Philadelphia Orchestra. And the recordings came out phenomenal. I had 2 recording companies vying to see who was going to release them. And the one that did is going to put it on Naxos, which is a big distribution label, as well as iTunes and Spotify and that stuff. And he's hoping that maybe we can get a Grammy nomination.
Wow.
So let me just back up, because there's a very interesting point, and I can talk about myself and till I'm blue in the face. But there's a point to all this.
Yes.
Which is that I went part-time my last year of college because I'd already done all my requirements, and one of my classmates had published, in secret, him and a friend published a book of orchestral excerpts for the saxophone. And these are common to all the orchestral instruments, which are books that are compendia of difficult solos and important passages from the orchestral literature. And there was no book for the bass clarinet. So I said, Bruce, let's do one for the bass clarinet. Let me write one. And I became the second thing in his catalog. And lo and behold, it got traction. And it became the book that everybody uses worldwide if you want to learn the orchestra literature for the bass clarinet. And so it sounds funny, but if you go to any professional symphony orchestra and they have a bass clarinet player playing and you say, I know Michael Drapkin, the first thing they're going to say is, oh, I have his books.
Right.
So there's 5 books now.
A book of reference. Well, when you have your passion, on stage and you are playing all of it, that your life is about you and your passion, that can give this kind of thing. Because how you speak about it, I just want to tell you, is very natural. It looks like things come to you. It was on the area of music. I don't know about the rest, but this is interesting to have a man here with those 2 hats. On the musical hat, you've been very thorough. I mean, going to the level of PhD, which I did not understand when I looked at it on your bio, that PhD was on your bio for music. I said, what is it? He's going to teach? Is it going to be a dean of a music school, or what is it going to be?
Well, actually, I was a finalist for 3 dean positions, another one to my great surprise.
Yeah.
And in retrospect, I'm glad it didn't work out, because I told them, look, if you're just looking for the guy who's going to turn the lights off at night, I'm not the guy, right? And that's a whole other long discussion.
Maybe there is something waiting for you at Juilliard or something.
Well, actually, out of my dissertation is so there's a point to all this,
right?
Which is the overarching theme is is what are you passionate about?
Yes.
Where is your passion?
Yes.
And chances are, if I have this passion, then other people are going to have that passion
Yes.
too. And what are the things that I can do to help facilitate that? So, case in point, my bass clarinet books, which are now 5 volumes, have been facilitating people for learning how to play the bass clarinet in orchestras. You know, and I'm very proud of that.
Yeah.
And I get random messages periodically from people thanking me for writing these books, that they're so excellent. I didn't know they were going to be good. I just did the best I could at the time, right?
Yeah.
And fortunately, you know, people like them. And I also crossed over my 2 hats quite a bit. So for quite a while, I was the sage of entrepreneurship in classical music.
Okay.
So I was telling people that musicians need to be more entrepreneurial. You can't just get in line and hope that someone's going to hand you a job.
Right.
But if you practice long enough, because you know the old joke is, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, right? So, you know, you need to be different,
Yeah.
right? You need to figure out how to be different and to be able to follow your passion, that there isn't just one way of doing it, and you have to feel organically what's important to you and what is it you love about music. So
And on the business side, I just don't want to interrupt you, but we have a limited time. So, let me also tell everybody to use the chat. I forgot to say that when I was talking about the housekeeping introduction. Use the chat if you want to ask Michael any question or
Sure.
make any comments. It's here and we'll see it. We won't be able to reply to it because it's the limitation of Restream and LinkedIn, but we can at least see it and reply to it here or later. Okay.
Sure.
No. But Michael, on the business side of the second hat, the business one, how do you express the passion there?
Well, I get satisfaction at seeing a very well thought out plan come to fruition and overseeing all the little steps that are needed for it to be successful. And by the way, it doesn't matter whether it's business, technology, or music, it's all the same. The difference is that it's a lot of the stuff is very well known in the business world. It is almost completely unknown in the music world, right? So what I ended up doing was I took what I learned in business to help what I did in music, and I also took what I learned in music for what I did in business. So in business, I was very comfortable performing, working with others, because I'm used to working in ensembles, you know, and I took what I learned in the business world and I was evangelizing about entrepreneurship. And to my great surprise, about 15 years ago, I got $100,000 in grants from the Kauffman Foundation. And I put on 2 international conferences and seminars around the country teaching people about entrepreneurship. And it wasn't just individuals. We're talking about college faculty and deans because they didn't understand any of this stuff.
Yes.
You know, some deans think, well, entrepreneurship, that's freelance playing. I said, well, no, that's instead of having 1 boss, you've got 15 bosses, right? Entrepreneurship is go create something, right?
Yes.
And it's so well known in the business world, the whole process of how to start a business, you know, ideation, valley of death, you know, early growth phase. Everybody's kind of figured all this out. Now, it doesn't make it any easier.
And cash flow.
Cash flow, right. So, I mean, I like to observe and listen, as I know you do as well, as I learn things, you know, like when I was working at Lehman Brothers, I know I didn't cause them to fail. When I worked at Lehman Brothers, I was managing our relationship with the software company. And you'll notice one of the founders had a string of successful, you know, entrepreneurship companies, startup companies, one after another. And I said to him, so what is your secret to this? And he said, well, you have to have a good product. And that includes having funding. You have to have really good people. And then the third thing you can't control is you have to have luck, right? And I'm always fascinated by the idea of luck. Like we talk about, luck is where preparation meets opportunity. The other side of this is I don't want to be lucky because luck is hard to reproduce when you need it.
Right.
Right? I got lucky with,
That's very cute.
but again, these crossovers. So one of the things I learned when I did that crazy set of orchestra auditions where I made the finals, I realized that I wasn't being lucky. It wasn't a heroic effort. What had happened was I had risen to the level
Yes.
of being a professional player. And when I did an audition, I was doing my everyday level of playing.
Yes.
It wasn't like, oh my God, I finally got this right. It's like, I enjoyed going through those pieces. I enjoyed playing these works that I learned, and I didn't make very many mistakes. Why? Because that was the level I was playing at. And when I was playing professionally, it wasn't like, do I deserve to be here? But I enjoy being here, and I enjoy the roles that I play.
So,
right?
So I want to tell you something. As the theme here is changing people's life or the world in general. When you said the story about your book and the fact that it's a reference book now in the world of music, that's already a sign that you're impacting many, many people. You didn't have an initial intention to do that. Just by being who you are, by being pretty perfectionist in terms of doing this right, and in fact to the mastery level, which is the clarinet thing, the
Right.
music, but can be done also in the same way in your entrepreneurship and the technology side of your life and business side of your life. I would like to just try to see how you in fact manage this on a daily basis. When you have, who in fact comes across your way? Well, who is coming your way in front of you and sees you, watches you, and gets inspired by you?
Well, the interesting part of that is it isn't always things that people see. It's things that they have available to them that they wouldn't have had I not done these things.
Okay.
Had I not worked on these books, then they would have had the same trouble I had before I wrote my own books, right? I had to go out and scrounge all the orchestra parts for these things. I facilitated everybody because I was there. Another one on the extreme other end is part of my dissertation is called the Brooklyn model. So when I was doing consulting for Citigroup about 9 years ago in New York City, I got invited to join the board of the Brooklyn Philharmonic, who had this amazing community model. So instead of expecting people to come to the museums of classical music, which we call concert halls, which are centralized in a community, they had this great model with their conductor, Alan Pearson, that they were identifying communities in New York City, in Brooklyn in particular, and they were playing music of the community with people from the community in the community.
Right.
So for the Black community, they had Erykah Badu and they had Mos Def as their artists in residence with the Brooklyn Philharmonic, and they were performing with them and classical music in Bed-Stuy.
Yes.
It was really amazing. And I was stunned at how people were reacting to this, especially because of all the stuff I had previously done in entrepreneurship. So part of my dissertation is a book I'm going to be publishing called The Brooklyn Model, which basically explains all this.
Okay.
And this is something that every classical ensemble can use. And in fact, Leonard Slatkin says he's going to write me the foreword for, Great American Conductor. He's going to write the foreword for my book. But the idea is that when I see something that is really great or really gets me passionate, I think to myself, how can I share this with others? Right? And a lot of people had said to me, why don't you write a book on entrepreneurship? And I said, ho hum, that's boring. Other people have already done that. I don't want to do that. I don't have any passion for that, right? and actually at this point, I've actually written, co-written, or contributed to 18 books. So I have over 19 and 20 that are going to be coming out of my dissertation. But the point here is that you see an opportunity, you see things that you feel passionate about. Maybe you look at things a little bit differently than other people do, right?
Yes.
And you figure out a way of, if I'm passionate about it, how can I share this passion with others and have an effect on them?
So
And
how?
another great case in point, for example, is
Yeah.
when I would lecture to students about entrepreneurship. Um, it was typical that out of a big room full of people, there would be maybe 2 or 3 people where the light would turn on, and they
Yeah.
would
Yeah.
talk to me afterward, and they go, you know, I could do this. I have access to a concert hall. I could go put my own series together. I could do this. And I just say, go forth and conquer. That's
But
great.
one second, Michael. Think about someone who came back to you much later on and told you something about that impact you made, and it changed something in this person's life. Would you
I,
think about something?
I did.
Yeah.
About a year or so ago, I ran into a bass clarinet player who had been at a conference that I'd been at about 8 or 9 years before. And actually, it's happened twice recently. So that was one where I had walked with him and chatted with him about what he could do. And he said it totally changed his life. You know, the fact that I had encouraged him to do things differently. And then the funny one was just happened recently is since I moved to Florida, I've been warmly welcomed by the music community. And I've now performed with 3 professional orchestras. And when I went to play with the Southwest Florida Symphony in Fort Myers,
Right.
one of the clarinet player I sat next to went to my school with me. He was a freshman when I was a senior.
Wow.
And he said, you changed my entire life. You took me aside and said, you really need to pick up the bass clarinet as a way of getting into orchestras. And I did that, and it made all the difference. And I found this out 42 years later. Right?
Or you would have, and if you would not have come across this person, you would not have never known until the next show.
But
yeah.
my teacher, my clarinet teacher at the Eastman School of Music, his name was Stanley Hasty. Some of the best things he taught me, he said, made offhand comments to me.
Yeah.
Right. So, for example, he said, Michael, if you want to build a great technique, just pick any of the exercise books and practice them every day, and you'll build a great technique. Now, I didn't realize that until I moved to New York City, and I didn't have the cradle of the university around me, giving me things to do, and I wasn't playing like I wanted to. And I go, wait a minute. He said, go do these exercises. I called them my clarinet calisthenics, which is actually now a book that I published called Drapton's Book of Clarinet Calisthenics. And people use them to build their technique. They use them when they've been sick or had to have teeth done, where they need to get back in shape. And I have 3 different workouts in there, different lengths. And I say, if you want to get into shape, go do what I'm telling you to do in this book.
Wow.
And they come back to me and say, it's really made a big difference. Right. But I wrote it for myself.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly
what I wrote it for me.
I wanted to say that now. It's the time for me because we have to wrap up in a few minutes. And I was thinking that nothing of what you're saying has been really intended so much to get the kind of effect that you made on people or on your readers or whoever in the world of music or in the world of the business space. And I think that because of that reason, you had also an impact on me. You should know. When we came across each other, and it's been a while ago, like about maybe more than 10 years ago. And you got this tall guy called Michael Drapkin here, pretty tall. You don't see it, but I'm telling you, he's tall, and with a warm smile, and in sometimes a kind of difficult environment where there is pressure, where there is all kind of little bad vibes sometimes, or electricity. But you've got this warm person coming your way, all inspired by different things, 2 hats, but much more than 2, passionate person. This is what inspiration is about. And yeah, he had an impact on my life because it gave me hope at the time when it was not so easy to have. And it was one of the very few people that I was inspired by in a difficult time. So I want you to know.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, of course, you and I both met at a certain unnamed company that we both worked for.
Yes.
It took me 2 weeks working there to realize that it was screwed up. And the irony, the grand
Don't say the
irony
name.
is,
Don't say the name.
I made more friends at that company than at
Yeah.
any other company I've ever worked for.
Exactly.
And they're still my friends. And I've
Exactly.
been getting your emails ever since then.
Exactly.
So when he says sign up for his emails, go do it. I'm still getting them, and I enjoy getting them, mostly because I want to see what he's doing, right? And you're only one of a handful of people who's I let their emails come into my inbox.
Well, that's
You know?
the beauty of social media now, that you can follow people, you can continue the relationship even this way, and follow what they do. So, what you up to? We have 2 minutes. What you up to now in terms of the on the business side of your life? Because you talked a lot about the music.
Well, actually, because my dissertation is winding down now, I'm in the phase where it's drafted, and my advisors in the Netherlands are in the let's beat up Drapkin phase, right?
Okay.
Which is what they're paid for, right? And I have to swallow my ego. But I've recently started pivoting, looking for other management positions back in the business world, which I'd like to do at least for a few more years.
Yes.
And so if anybody needs a senior project or a program manager or senior business analyst, I've done a lot of work in payments and AML and strategy.
But more than the CV and the technical aptitudes, right, and competencies that you have, I know that what they get, if someone is lucky to have you, is all that comes along with the charisma, the personality, and the impact you make on people. So if it's about adding an incredible treasured asset to the team, where there's someone who is leader and can really empower and inspire people to be productive, to do whatever
Sure.
the goal is, in any kind of setting that is encouraging you, I think that's the equation that would be very nice to see.
Sure, and I also have to say that in 5 days, I get to announce that I've signed a contract to play next season with the entire season with the Venice, Florida Symphony.
Okay.
We have a really nice relationship, and I'm performing the Memorial Day concert this weekend with them. I have rehearsal tomorrow night.
Okay.
I've got a big queue of books that I want to write, of things that I want to do, and I write them because I want to do them.
You're a powerhouse. You're a powerhouse. Hey, what is your favorite piece of music that when you play it? What is your favorite lifetime favorite?
So German composer Richard Strauss is my favorite.
Yes.
And he wrote a piece called Ein Heldenleben, A Hero's Life, which of course is about him. And he quotes his own works in it. And when I was graduating high school, about to go to Eastman, I went to the Aspen Music Festival that summer, and I auditioned and won the ability to play bass clarinet and Ein Heldenleben in the student orchestra. And the first rehearsal, I was completely lost.
Okay, yeah.
I was lost for the whole first rehearsal, which I remember very fondly. But I love that piece. And I love most of the works of Richard Strauss. I mean, I love a million composers, right?
Yes.
The pieces that I rescored for my dissertation, I wouldn't do them if I didn't love them. Of course, one of them is by Richard Strauss, because I figured that if I could rescore Strauss, I can do anything.
Yes.
Right? And it came out just great. If you want to hear them, you can go to restructuringclassicalmusic.com, and you'll see a pull down called the Rescored Works, and there are videos of each one of these pieces that I did, and they just came out fantastic. I'm very proud of it.
Again, what is the website?
It's restructuringclassicalmusic.com.
Okay.
I figured nobody would have taken that, right?
All right.
It's created a long one.
And for those who are interested in you, Michael, they find you on LinkedIn.
I'm on LinkedIn. You want to learn more about me, go to www.drapkin.net, because it talks about my music, my business, my publications, my performances, my compositions, all sorts of stuff that make me who I am.
Yes, so, and you can come mostly to me, and if you want to, and I'll introduce you to Michael with great pleasure. So thank you very much, Michael. I only the time to say thank you to you. To hope that I can see you again, maybe here, and certainly face to face. If I come to Florida, I'll knock on your door.
Thanks for having me. And of course, we could have gone on for another 3 hours, but
Yes, I know, but it was great. Really, I think many people will appreciate everything that you said and that you shared generously with us tonight.
it's passion.
Yes,
That's
exactly.
the one thing you were getting from me is my passion.
That's what we want in the world. That's all there is. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
See you soon. Everybody, bye, and thank you. Bye.